What is Games Workshop's favorite Warhammer 40,000 faction? Gotta be the Space Marines. Undeniably, unequivocally, it is the Space Marines. They get 10 of everything. But what is Games Workshop's second favorite 40k faction? I would say it's the Orks. The Orks have a monstrous model range with a ton of new units every single year. I have an Ork army, although I haven't experienced a lot of the new things. It might be time to change that. A few years ago, the Orks got essentially a new sub-faction in the Beast Snaggas. I have never put together a Beast Snagga, and my general thoughts when I saw them come out is, they're pretty darn cool, but are they different enough from normal Orks to feel special? I don't know if they are, but I do have some saucy ideas of how I could make mine really unique. This big old box is filled to the gills with these new minis. The ones I want to play with right now are the rank and file troopers, the Beast Snagga boys. They're essentially regular Ork boys with regular Ork war gear, although I feel like it's a very good sign that the part number 69 is the Power Claw. These Orks are pretty monopose. It'd be really hard to change these up a lot, which could be a problem for ranking up tons of these guys. A min squad is 10 and a maximum squad is 20. They do look really good though, with some really nice dynamic poses. It wasn't too bad building all the boys in the box. The mold lines were very small and nicely hidden most of the time, and there was not a lot of optional parts other than the bits to turn the knob back into a regular boy. I left most of the heads up because I might be changing those later. I drilled out the barrels of the Sluggas. This might be a little bit superfluous. I can't imagine I'll take the time to shoot with these guns in game. The Ork Beast Snagga Boy box is pretty darn good. These guys feel nice and orky, pretty monopose in the construction, although I don't think that's going to stop me from doing some kit bashing and converting to these guys. Comparing them to Ork Boys Classic, they're quite a bit taller, although I think that's more to do with the fact that this old box is from 2007 and still going strong. These new guys are pretty much in every way your standard Ork boy, with the Slugga and a Choppa. They're a little bit fightier and a little bit tankier, but overall, they're pretty much just an Ork boy, which is kind of what's kept me away from them. It's a little bit tricky to make them feel unique and special, but I have some ideas. My Orks are themed around possibly the greatest film of all time, Mad Max Fury Road. These guys are the War Boys. And so for these Beast Snaggas, I'm thinking another faction seen in this film, the Buzzards. In the movie, the Buzzards are pretty much the same thing, but they're very visually distinct because the Worm Boys are all shiny and chrome, where the Buzzards are covered in bandages and absolutely drenched in rust and spikes. And I can drench some models in some rust and spikes. To start to get my Beastie Boys ready for paint, I had to build the bases. My Ork collection has been through many incarnations of Yellow Desert. To make these bases, I started off gluing on some random chunks of cork down to the cobalt keep bases and then carving them on an angle to make some irregular ground. Then to smooth out the cork and blend it into the flat bases, I put a big old blob of milliput down, smearing it into the cork, making a little pile in the center so each base has some nice shape to the ground. I glued down my Orks, and since they have such big feet, I didn't feel like I needed to pin them. Then I coated the bases with some wood glue and gave each base a dusting of medium sand and then a dunk of fine grain sand. Now my bases are done, but to integrate their feet into the messy environment, I took some sandy texture paste and spread this over their feet and lower legs. This sticky paste sticks to the plastic and holds the grains tight to the model. Now my minis are standing, it's time to turn them from Ork boys with some extra armor into Buzzard boys. I took some plastic card and began cutting some triangles. The scissors cut through the plastic, but it bent the fine tips, so I switched to a chopper tool and blasted through the plastic. On many of the spikes, I glued two triangles together to make a paper airplane shape. Like the Orks, I've reinforced some spikes to be extra sturdy, and once I had a big old pile, I mixed up some green stuff. I pressed and rolled this out flat and then cut off about a square inch of this thin sheet, using my fingers and the jaws of my tweezers to shred the edges to make them irregular. Then I draped this over the shoulders of my Orks, leaving their big metal shoulders and any pre-existing spikes poking through. Then I shoved in my spikes with a drop of super glue. The plastic card sinks into the green stuff, giving me a decent amount of grip. I'm hoping these will be nice and sturdy once the putty is dry. I put on a bunch of spikes onto each Ork, just as many as I could comfortably fit. Another detail of the Buzzards is their faces are hidden behind masks and goggles. I don't mind the exposed mouths, Orks love to bite, but I do want all of their eyes covered. To make the goggles, I took a tiny ball of green stuff and pressed this into the Ork's eyes. Then I used a silicone sculpting brush to squish them flat. Then I took a needle applicator and pressed this into the round shape to leave a round impression. It looks a little funky, and there probably should be some kind of a strap around the head, but I feel like after a paint job, it'll look good enough. After I had all my boys spiked up, I used any Ork heads I had in my collection that were already wearing goggles. Everyone's eyes are covered, which will be another thing separating these Beast Snagga boys from my normal Orks. Now the green stuff is a little too clean and smooth for the rough and tumble Buzzard boys. So to add some texture, I took Vallejo Industrial Mud, which is a texture paste with very fine particulate in it, and I spread this over the spikes and green stuff. Also, this paste available from EonsOfBattle.com. I globbed it on and came in with a clean brush to push it around so I had a nice even coat that was fatter and globbier around the base of each spike. With that, the build is done. My Beast Snaggas are all built and I really like them. With the spikes on there, they feel different than boys. They've got the same energy as a small dog wearing an anti-coyote vest, which makes sense for their role. They're the anti-monster guys, and a Carnifex is gonna think twice about eating one of these suckers with all the spikes on there. And speaking of that role, what makes the Beast Snaggas different? Because if you look at the profile, they're almost identical to boys. 10 Beast Snagga boys with a Beast Boss is an almost identical profile to 10 Orc boys with a War Boss. The differences come from these guys' abilities. So they get full rerolls against monsters and vehicles, which is pretty solid. Full rerolls is great, especially when you can get sustained hits on your attacks and you're throwing 30 attacks or 40 on the Wa turn. That gets a little bit spicy, and the Beast Boss gets devastating wounds against vehicles. So these guys are just Orc boys who hit quite a bit harder against vehicles. And against vehicles, it's not nothing. They probably will mulch smaller things like Sentinels or Vipers. They can probably, especially on the Wa turn, crack like a Rhino or a Gladiator. They're not gonna do much to up save stuff. Like they'll scratch the paint a little bit, but they're just not gonna be able to bring it down. Now, they can definitely hit harder in their own detachment, the Beast Snagga detachment, the Big Hunt. In this, they can get +1 AP against one chosen target on the battlefield, which is really good. These guys have AP 1 naturally. Going to AP 2 is huge, especially when most vehicles have excellent save characteristics. Without access to that, like if you're taking Warhorde, they definitely don't hit as hard against vehicles. But maybe that's okay, because at the end of the day, they are boys. And even if they can do some extra threat against vehicles, they're also just boys. They would love to fight some infantry or to stand on an objective with their objective control too. They're not vehicle destroyers, but they also have a lot more things that they can just do during a game than kill vehicles. I like these guys. They add a nice little bit of variety and a little bit of variety in list building, because now instead of bringing 60 boys, I'm looking at more like 40 boys and 20 Beast Snaggas. Now I gotta get some paint on these Beast Snaggas. Typically for my Orks, I do a Zenithal Prime followed by some speed paints. But I want to try switching it up. I'm gonna have to paint a lot of these, and so I want to see if I can come up with something a little bit more clever to get them done fast. I started out with a white prime. Then I sprayed their lower halves and the bases with some space dust. Once that was done, I sprayed their upper halves with some demigod flames, a nice bright orangey color. I like how vibrant this is looking, but I want my shadows a little bit darker. I took some moldberry, a dark red, and I sprayed this from underneath. Holding the model upside down, let this color miss the bases and only land on the underside. These layers of undercoating have left me with some hot Cheeto colored Orks, and I'm hoping this will give me a massive head start on getting some fun looking Orks. Now on to picking out the stuff. Starting with Noble Skin Speed paint over all the weapons and armor. I really like this color. It's a black with a little bit of brown in it. And over my warm colors, it made for some very rusty looking metal. Then for the clothing, I took Dusk Red, a dark reddish color, and I put this all over the clothing and leather. Being a warm color, this darkened the texture on the minis without hiding anything. And to finish off my boys, their pants got some bony matter. This will highlight all the wrinkles and creases in their pants without changing the color much. I just need a little something down. I think most of the crimes will be hidden by the paint on the bases. Now that my colors are applied, I can do some fine tuning. I dry brush some gunmetal over the guns and armor. This over the speed paint makes for some really good looking, really quick metal. My models are really close to being done, and it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. So far so good on my Beast Snaggas. I've been able to get a lot of work done with the airbrush, with some washes, a little bit of dry brushing, no actual real painting yet, which is perfect. I do want a Beast Snagga wing of my Ork collection, and so being able to get them here without too much effort is really nice. Now that I am here though, the next step is the green skin, and I'm gonna have to paint it on, avoiding all the work I've already done. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. They don't have that much skin showing, but it's gonna be a little tricky. For that skin, I don't know what green will be best. Also, over this intense orange, my greens will change color a lot. First, I tried this camouflage green, which looks lovely in the bottle, but over my minis, it was very desaturated. Maybe not this one. I tried again with leafy green, a much more vibrant color, which also desaturated over my base coats, but it desaturated to where I wanted. I'm much happier with this color. I put on another layer to the top facing parts of the model to make my greens brighter. Then I put on some green speed paint, Charming Chartreuse. This color is exactly what I'm looking for. Thinned down about 50-50 and used sparingly. I'm doing a lot of learning on these Orks, but that just means my next batch will be perfect. To highlight the skin, I mixed up some demonic yellow with electric lime, and I did a bunch of rough highlighting on the skin, focusing on the tops and muscles and the larger open areas of skin. I'm hoping to not have to do too much detail painting per Ork to get them looking good. I did another layer of highlights with the same color, layering over top to make these spots extra bright. Overall, I think it was effective in separating my Beastie Boys skin from their clothing, and I had an idea to push them even further. I put some dusk red into my airbrush and sprayed this on from underneath. This transparent reddish speed paint color darkens the skin and surrounding accessories nice and quick, making everything look better. I used the same dusk red over their mouths to fill the in-betweens of their teeth, and I picked out those teeth with some ice yellow. With that done, the boys are close, but it's all been in preparation for some spicy finishing touches. I got all the bits of my Beast Snaggas picked out, and that green was a little bit challenging. The next time I paint up some Beast Snaggas, I got ideas of how I might improve this green recipe, but so far so good. Now I'm at the point in the project that I've been waiting for all day. The special effects. Dirted down rust, the best rust in the business. I like to use both red and yellow to get a really nice effect. This and a ton of other awesome hobby products are available from EonsOfBattle.com. On our website, we have all kinds of hobby goodies, great Hyde Studio bits to spice up your Space Marines, Army Painter paints, brushes, basing cork, and glue. Ultra thin and ultra thick super glue. And we have terrain. It's the best way to support us doing what we do by getting a membership. Each month, members get a credit good for any one terrain pack we've ever made or the brand new one. New in February, we've created the Invaded City Bits Pack, a series of thematic pieces to tell the story of an alien civilization awakening underneath an oblivious Gothic city. This pack features tile bits for filling in the flat sections of bases and many obelisks and pyramids of varying sizes to show off the power of this alien architecture. There's also plenty of Gothic elements to show the poor human settlement that is quickly being overtaken by implacable metal. And of course, no alien takeover would be complete without some critters to sprinkle some otherworldly flavor over your bases. This terrain is available physically and as STL from EonsOfBattle.com. I poured some red rust onto a playing card and mixed it 50-50 with water. Then I randomly spread this over the metal bits of my boys, globbed it on over about half of each detail. It goes on as a transparent red ink, and as it dries, it turns into a mottled red-orange color. Then I did the same thing with the dirty down yellow, putting it right over the previous layer and letting it dry. Now that it's on there, it's water soluble, so I can do some editing. I took a wet dry brush and gave each bit a scrub. This pulls the paint off the raised areas, and I rubbed off the excess onto a paper towel, leaving the rust behind in the recesses and letting that gunmetal paint shine through. With the rust looking good and rusty, I hit these spots with a final dry brushing of a bright silver to make the edges and tips really shine. All these layers work together to make the metal look extremely good. Also, Dirty Down was invented for movie props. It's possible Dirty Down was seen in Mad Max to add another layer to my movie-inspired army. Another little touch to get these models finished is painting their eyes. I was initially thinking yellow to go along with the base coats, but I actually think a light blue will cut through the rest of the warm colors and really pop. Now to finish off those bases, I think pigment powders are going to be the way to go. I made up a slurry of this yellow powder, mixed with water and a few drops of flow improver, and I slobber this all over the bases and their feet. And to add a little realism, I held the bristles close to the model and used my finger to flick the paint onto their upper legs and torsos. This splatter after it dries really makes them look like they have been rolling around in the sand. After the pigments dried, I used a clean wet brush to pull off any of the powder I thought was pooling too much or going somewhere that I didn't want, and I wiped this onto a paper towel. After that, I gave the bases a quick dry brushing of ice yellow, and to add a little more texture to the sand, and to pump up the intensity of the yellow, I put some Zealot yellow into my airbrush and dusted this over the bases. All these effects work together to make my boys more interesting without having to do a lot of hard painting. 10 Ork Beast Snaggas with my custom modifications that I feel like makes them look even more like beast hunters. Also, a weird note about the Beast Snagga kit, it comes with tons of these little glue-on bullet pieces. Like, it has like 10 or 15 of them. Kind of an awesome bit, but not on these guys. These are not at all shooty orcs. They all come equipped with the classic orc slugga, but who cares? Like, I'll probably never even shoot it when I'm playing games. 10 shots hitting on 5s, wounding on 5s, AP zip. Feel like those are some dice I don't need to roll. I'll definitely be holding on to those bits when it comes time to paint some more Ludas and Flash kits. Also, speaking of Ludas and Flash kits, they would make really good proxies if I'm keeping with my Mad Max theme for bullet farmer guys. But these guys are perfect buzzards. I really like how the warm colors and the spiky bits really set these guys apart from my standard orc boys. On the tabletop, they will be very visually distinct which ones are the Beast Snaggas and which ones are the boys classic. And I just really like how they look. I think this is going to be a really cool scheme going forward for some of my crew, and also maybe even for some orc commandos. I think they would also look good in this style. It was really fun putting together the Beast Snaggas. I got plenty more stuff in that box to put together and paint. Also, I am out of practice with painting some good old-fashioned troopers. I feel like I've been doing a lot of heavy infantry, characters, and vehicles. It's kind of nice to get right back into the groove of just painting a whole bunch of the same guy. Thanks for watching.